So to open up the afternoon, I think we're happy and excited to be talking about our PA Stream solution. Now, this is something that some of you in the audience have had some exposure to, and some of you are actively using the solution. But it is an area which is rapidly growing, and there's a number of reasons for that. It's the need for integration, and the need for integration and operational intelligence around that integration is something that some ways has been enhanced by the situation with cloud, the fact that people are moving to the cloud, and the fact that you need to deal with many different environments to achieve what you need to do as a business. So PA Streams, you could look at it as an integration platform, and platform is a key word there. So I'll come back to that, circle back to that in a second. But also it is an operational intelligence tool, and we like to use that terminology because it actually allows you to look at your data, examine your data in real time, and this could be data that you are transferring between systems. It could be events that you're looking for in different environments that trigger events in another environment, so an integration type scenario. Or it could be just monitoring for events, for data sets, for all sorts of different things across many different solutions, or even externally to the organization, external services, things like this, situations occurring, which then can lead you to have a better understanding of what's happening in your integration or in your systems, or maybe just scenarios that are multi-factored in that there is a situation occurring that you are monitoring through an external system of some type, which then affects the way you should be acting. So it could just be the weather in Buckinghamshire today, or something like that, to take it to the extreme. But PA Streams allows you to both build a platform that can sit independently of your solutions and provide for integration between all of them, and at the same time allows you to layer these capabilities of operational intelligence, of monitoring and alerting on top of those systems and your scenarios to get better efficiency, to allow you to act earlier, to allow you to intervene before something happens potentially. So that could be just a failure in an integration. Why did that supplier not go across? Maybe it's something more complex than that, checking that a supplier has the right credit rating with an external service before it's integrated into your systems. So you can see how with Streams you can make these connections in a way that can actually benefit you more than just being a single point-to-point integration capability. So within your solution for procurement or your CRM system or some systems, but potentially there are capabilities, of course, to allow for integration to other systems. However, maybe there's limitations there outside of certain product sets, outside of certain data sets, and Ion is a very capable tool in OS, certainly. So, there is a place for both of these tools in the world. But PA Streams does have a very open architecture that can allow you to benefit and build a platform that sits there, making it easy for you to swap things around, build out layers, not be limited or locked to a single system because you've built hours and hours of effort into your integration capabilities. So if you think about different scenarios, this is a slide obviously that I really love, just presenting it in different ways, but hybrid cloud, private hosted, you may have systems sitting on premise, and the way you integrate with those could be something simple. It could be a file feed, something like that. But it could also be that you're running database level queries against a system that you have access to and then using that data to do something else. That becomes harder when you shift into a cloud environment where you don't have access to the underlying databases, you have to use API connections and open connectivity. But maybe you've got both. Perhaps you need to be doing something from an on-premise system and then having integration with a cloud-based system or a cloud-to-cloud-based system. And what you need is a multi-tool, a connector with many arms and many tools that will allow you to click into all of these environments and bring what you need together, understand that data, and indeed lay operational intelligence over the top in terms of being able to understand events or maybe even add value to what you're doing in another way. So Streams can work in all of these environments. We can install Streams on premise, where it can look at all of your local systems but still access external. We can install it in our cloud, where we could then have it looking at other cloud systems or external internet world systems, or indeed looking back to your on-premise. We have something which we call our enterprise connector, which allows us to put that into your environment, which allows local activity to occur and then still communicate with streams in the cloud to then go off and do other things that you may want to do. So all of these multi-layers can be brought together through the tool. The other area is levering newer technologies and things that you would never have on-premise or do not have locally. So if you look at AI, things like this, they tend to be services running in the cloud. They tend to be high-end services that you may subscribe to. There may be open models that you could use, or there could be private models that you subscribe to that are focused on your industry. And they can give you intelligence. They can help you with what you need to do. They are specialized for that purpose. But they're really regarded as complex to integrate with, to actually build out a connection to Azure AI or to benefit from Coleman or whatever it may be. You have to be able to build this technically. And Streams already has built-in capabilities that make it easy to lever connections to these things and slowly introduce them into your business easily from one platform, benefiting all the solutions that are linked together through Streams. So leverage is really important, and the ability to do it with a technological base that then is upgradable. It shifts forward over time and supports all the new technologies without you having to worry about that in your individual systems and capabilities that you're using. So Streams is very much a multi-tool. There are lots of challenges in the world of integration, in the world of how we understand data, how we improve our operations. And just a few of these here, human error, this is sort of focused on integration here. But if you think about manual, ineffective communication, you don't want that. You need things that talk effectively across and ensure that you don't get that human error creeping in, because we are all human. And it's inefficient. So you want to have strong integrations for that reason. And some can be complex as well. So who here has an IT team who are continually talking or worrying or looking forward to building out the integration with another system or changing something because something internally has changed? Alex, I'm sure that's the case. There's always something going on that's complex in terms of worrying about what the next thing you need to integrate is. How can you do that? What system capabilities are there? Whereas with Streams, you have something that you can rely on as your backbone. It's easily deployable. So we can build this for subject matter experts, people who understand what they want to do and understand the data set, but aren't necessarily looking to be highly technical, although we can drop right down to the technical if you need to. So having a tool that takes some of that worry out of it and addresses the complex and the simple. So that's something Streams is good at. Data is siloed. We don't want siloed data, and this is something obviously that things like the data lake in the Infor environment, things like EPM, all of these BI type tools, trying to bring things together to understand your data, make it easy. We have to integrate, and this is one of the barriers people see in moving to the cloud. They worry about moving those integrations forward. They worry about the complex stuff they've done that now needs to be replicated in the cloud in a different way. So if you can take the sting out of that by providing yourself with a backbone that's capable and able to do that, and then make it deployable easily, that helps you with that transition. It means you don't lose functionality, and whatever you face in terms of it being file, being API, being email integration, alerting, social media integration, whatever it may be, there are things you can do with Streams. So it's a highly capable tool. Challenges around visibility of data, where it's scattered, single source of truth. So we all have those old sort of standard reference data type scenarios where we need to sync it between systems. Supplier in here needs to also be in here and here and here. That sort of thing. They're standard use cases, which you can do easily with the tool, and you can use that logic that you build out for it for not just one system, but many systems. So you can repeat that. You can have stream one using logic. Then you have another system that needs to apply the same logic, but maybe the endpoint is different. So the way you push that data into the other tool, or maybe some of the mapping is slightly different. You don't have to rip and replace and build something new. You can actually use the stream you have and say, right, we'll use the same logic, we'll put another spur in there, because we are talking a stream of data, a flow. And we can deal with those flows and have many different directions and repeatability around those streams. So that's something we're pretty good at. It's also reducing the risk. So if you have in-house custom-built integrations or operational intelligence monitoring, Those things are typically focused on one or a couple of people within the business. They built it a couple of years ago. Something changes, you end up in a position where suddenly that person has moved on or is sick or whatever, and you have to still do something new. So it has to be reinvented and re-understood, and there's a cost to that. Keeping it upgraded for technology, for security, for new versions of operating systems. All of these things have a cost in time and effort on the business and the effectiveness ultimately of the business. So by building it in a platform such as Streams, where it is kept up to date externally, it is a high technology platform, you then don't have the risk of coming out of date, and it's skill sets that can easily be trained and understood and are more ubiquitous than just your IT team. So that's something the IT team can then start using and then build from it, which takes some of that pain and risk out of it. So these are important challenges that we have. And we all know the old sort of bad data in, bad data out type scenario, talking about integration. What you need is good, clean data as well. So you may have 100 data elements coming through from your CRM system to your accounting system potentially, but there are a couple that are always going to be dodgy. There's something about that record that isn't set up right, isn't captured right, poor validation at the beginning. So building in strong degrees of capability in terms of dealing with error management. When things fall over, you don't want the whole batch to fall over. You want to be able to continue pushing things through and then deal with that error data record separately, have someone alerted of the case, maybe suggest some changes if you were to move towards sort of AI and suggested capabilities, or what we call recommendations in the Streams area, can be really beneficial. So people are looking at the tool and implementations we're doing because we can build out better error management capabilities. We can provide dashboards to capture those errors, and we can make sure that they are democratized and understood and dealt with in the right place, maybe updating the source system when things go wrong. You've also got low-level situations for error handling where, standard simple things like timings, so when things come through and it's slightly later than it should be, or you're waiting on one record when another one is needed, all of these things, if you programmatically fix them, take time and effort. Whereas if you can build something where it automatically has built-in capability for waiting for lags and understanding it's looking for multiple files, all of that stuff's really, really good. So this is all quite technical, it's not accountancy, but without it, you find that you lose that capability to provide good visibility and ensure systems are up to date and you can act quickly. But then over the top, I come back to the operational intelligence area, the ability to monitor, the ability to do things that aren't standard. And I'm going to talk about a couple of those, and I'm going to talk about it with Gail and Tim in a minute or two, so hopefully with some assistance there. So I think what I'm saying is we need to look at changing the landscape for you. The ability with Streams to improve your operational efficiency, make sure everything's where it should be when it should be, make sure we deal with errors well, make sure we have full visibility, and then give you that transparency and clean data that can be filtered by the system, understood by the system, but not just the data set. So going back to my sort of supplier scenario, if you wanted to go and do a Dun & Bradstreet check against something that was being pushed through, as well as doing a credit check, and also check that we haven't used this supplier in the past and we're creating it for another record, those things are not standard in integration. There's ability to contextualize, the ability to jump out during data flowing through a process and say, right, I want to check this, aha, that's good or not, check that, come back, that's good or not, and then tell someone if it's wrong. So this supplier, actually, you put on your high credit risk list last time we looked at this, bring that back from somewhere else. Or Dun & Bradstreet have a low rating. These sort of things are beyond integration. That's where operational intelligence comes into play, and it gives you clean, trustworthy data, but also customized to meet your particular scenarios. And this is the benefit of the solution. So this is the operational intelligence area. So comprehensive operational insight, giving you great visibility over your data and your integrations, and then giving you that enhanced ability to build out and do things such as recommendations and alerting, maybe based on predictive models, maybe based on an AI model that you are using generically or something that's focused on your industry. So one of the things about Streams I think is important to mention is it actually comes out of another tool which we work with, it's a partner company to ourselves, called XM Pro. And some of you may have heard of XM Pro in the past. They are a solution which it is streams. It's just that we've taken it and used it in this space as PA streams because it's a business-facing type scenario around accountancy. But XM Pro, at its core, is high volume, big industry, mining, oil and gas, this sort of thing. It's based on the ability to deal with very high volumes of data. It integrates directly with sensors and real-world data. So IoT is becoming a bigger and bigger thing, and that's maybe creeping into some of the businesses. I know, talking to housing associations, for example, things like boilers, fire doors, all this sort of thing is becoming more and more important, and therefore bringing that into your business, looking at being able to report on it, keeping that data there is something you need a tool to do as well going forward. And PA Streams has all that capability because it's based on XM Pro, just to point that out, and it's high volume and efficient. So AI recommendations, I think that's something we really should be looking to have a tool to expand on. So just talking about sort of the way that we deploy PA Streams, it has a connector-based type capability. So we have a library of what we call connectors or agents, which allow us to talk to different systems out of the box. And that library is always increasing. So it could be your Sun Systems connector for talking to OS and Ion. It could be looking at SSC for some versions of Sun Systems. It could be talking to Salesforce or Coupa or SAP or any of these things. And we have a library that we've already got, and we can build new ones as we go along. And once we have a connector, you can use that as many times as you like. So over on this side here, your source system could be any one of those I've just sort of been talking about. It could be your target system, is that or something else? And by having a connector, we can just drop it into the canvas. Immediately, it understands the way of connecting to those systems. So it may be an API, it may be a file feed, it may be whatever that is. And you just put your authentication details in, define your parameters, and it goes. So that makes it quick, makes it easy. And once you've got it, you can use it again and again and again. You've also got the stream. So if you imagine a data stream, imagine a data stream being data passing through the system here from left to right, you in effect during that stream can change the data, manipulate the data. You could jump out and validate against other systems, the contextualization bit, applying rules and logic, having feedback loops. So if you think about this stream not being directly across, it could be that we're going to do something in the source system in event of certain scenarios. So it's a workflow. In effect, we're building a stream, but is a workflow to achieve your outcome. And that could have not just one connection here and one here, it could be a whole set of different connections during the process to go and do checks and balances, things like checking for tax status. So we've built out recently looking at Avalara type check for tax status during the integration of data between systems. It also can deal with all sorts of different languages, XML, JSON, database triggers, MQTT is a sensor type feed. And these are blocks and logics that we can drop in. So if you wanted to do some sort of merge of data, we can drop a merge block in. And that merge block has 2 inputs, 3 inputs, whatever, and we can just build it out simply. So very visual in the way it works. And that is something that then gives you flexibility. You aren't limited to the fact that one system does one thing and one does something else. We can just change it all up as we go along and manage it within our dashboards that I'm going to show you. So we're trying to make the complex simple, but complex is still complex. It's just we're trying to take the sting out of that complexity. But complexity also is good. There's so many things we could do with our data if we had the time and the tools and the capability to actually use it in a different way. So I'm sure there are many scenarios that you can think of where you've got things linked together, data flowing between multiple systems, where if you really had the time, the effort, and the capability, you could look at that data and go, hang on, if I examine that in a certain way, if I look at it in a certain way, that could give me warnings of scenarios that are occurring. This could actually give me sort of capabilities beyond just having it coming across. Oh, thank God it's coming across. That's not what we need. We need that to be sure and certain. And above that, we need some benefit to the business as well. And that's what complex to simple is for us. So different scenarios, different areas. We have lots of different sectors using this, but just talking about a few of them. Retail sector, a typical type scenario for this, we have a client looking at this, which is invoice system integration with Sun systems. So simple type scenario where you've got invoices being generated in another system, and the data needs to be mapped, it needs to be passed as journals into Sun. We need to potentially pass across documents as well into SharePoint or another system for them. And we have streams working to achieve that. So that's a simple sort of integration type scenario. It's repeatable. You could do that for many different systems. The endpoint for Sun is the same. It's journals going in. So if you've got a stream running and it's done that, and you've got another system to do the same thing, hey, just change your connection at the front end and achieve something different. That's one area. Housing. It's another area where we're talking. We have quite a few clients in housing association space. Work orders, repairs, systems integrations, things like that. That's an area where there's continual change and challenges, particularly as people are moving to the cloud and shifting their systems forward. How do I now do that? So streams in that space is something that people are examining, along with some of these scenarios I mentioned for IoT. How can we start to use those data sets to tell us something important? And that could be as simple as checking a compliance register to see when something was last renewed. And if it's not, then we need to contact somebody. So we're not talking just financial data here. We're talking information that could be beneficial to the business if it's held somewhere that we can deal with in that way. So that's an important one. But then, logistics, other area, there's a lot of moving parts in logistics, lots of systems, weigh bridges, there's all sorts of things that we've been looking at there. But we do have one particular client where they actually have a logistics system, and we're using streams to link to that and allow them to allocate jobs and then trigger the invoicing process and things like this. So this is deep integration in different ways. The one I really want to talk about, though, and this is where my colleague down here come into play, is hospitality. The growing space for Sun Systems Cloud. It's been a market for us for many years. And we've recently started a global alliance with two of our partners, LLP and PAS, and Tim Smulders and Gail Edwards here, from those organisations. We're working with them to roll out streams and other PA products, etc., across the hospitality space, because hospitality has many different geos. We have hotel chains in different areas. There's all sorts of complexities there, and having specialists in that area is really important. And PAS and LLP do have a very strong knowledge in that area. So some of the areas for that: Opera property management systems, bringing data into Sun systems, some complex files that need to be managed in a particular way. So there's a stream that we're building for that then can be deployed multiple times. Smith Travel Reports, again, it's a Sun Systems integration. Tax, as I mentioned, from Avalara. Concur, purchasing and expenses. Salesforce, Birch Street is another management system. So all of these are appearing in that space. And with streams, you're able to deal with any of those systems. So if you jump from one to another, you could then just click and drag and put the stream back in and have the same thing, which is really, really good. Symphony for covers is another area. And I think, guys, would you be able to come and have a little chat, maybe? Just, I think, if they could perhaps explain some of their experiences and why people are looking to move to streams, that would be really good, because there is a lot of interest in this area, isn't there, Gail? So, I know that you're looking to replace quite a few integrations currently that you're working on.
Yeah, we really are. We have a lot of clients that currently have file-based integrations, or in some cases email-based integrations we were talking about earlier, as it relates to getting data from these source systems into the accounting tool. And to Andrew's point, there's more data in there than just the accounting side of it, right? I'm an accountant, I like numbers. But there are other numbers that are on those things that we want to look at as well. And so one of the last things that's up there, right, fraud prevention, alerting, dashboarding relating to Symphony. Symphony is a register system. So you go into the bar, you ring up your drink, right? Or you sit in the restaurant, they ring up your meal. That's the point of sale system. On that same report, that's coming from Symphony, that's giving us the identification that says, hey, how many covers did you ring up last night? A cover is a meal. How many covers did you ring up last night, and what was the value affiliated with those covers? It also tells you things like, how many times did the bartender open a check and cancel it? That's important for you to know as a financial manager, because that's an alert to you that there's fraud going on. The bartender is opening a register, he's opening a check, turning around, serving the beer, pocketing the cash, closing the check like it never happened. believe me, it happens. I caught a huge group of my bartenders when I was a director of finance in Miami that were doing this every night, right? So it happens all the time. Other things that happen with that as well is you actually see things that have been opened and reprinted throughout the day. So if you go into a buffet restaurant, right, that data gets rung up and the check gets represented over and over and over again until somebody closes it out to a credit card or room charge instead of cash. And the cash has gone where? In the server's pocket. Okay? So fraud is really something that it's really important for us to be able to see that and trigger it and react to it. And that's information that a simple file-based integration isn't going to tell me. The file-based integration is going to tell me, hey, you had 30 covers for breakfast and 26 covers for lunch and 180 covers for dinner. Congratulations.
So this is the operational intelligence point of view.
Exactly.
You're getting data that you have to shift from one place to another. So you want that data into Sun Systems in this case. But you also can get more value from it. So this is an example here of what you're saying, Gail.
Yep.
This is, it's not real data, but in effect, being able to, in the Streams or XM Pro environment, build out these sort of dashboards that allow you to drill down and see the results of that. So this could be anything. It could be a traffic light. It could be some other representation. But this deployed to staff members gives you that operational viewpoint that you don't get from that sort of thing. You also have the ability to do things like Power BI integration from here. So you could build those sort of things into that. But I think what you're seeing also is people are looking for a backbone rather than sort of individual like integrations. Is that?
Yeah, exactly right. Like a single source, right? Everything coming into a certain place, and so they can feel confident that as the data's coming in, you're receiving at one time. So it's one set of source, it's one set of truth that comes in, regardless of what all the source systems are. And to your point, the ability to say, bring it all in here, let's normalize it, let's send alerts for things we need to be aware of that are different, right? That are unusual within the business that make me think, oh, I need to go look at this, something's not right here. But then I know that data is transferring in, whether it's going into Sun Systems, into EPM, into Power BI, that it's consistently going the same way. And I'm not sitting there saying, I'm out of balance by $90. Oh, that dreaded divide by 9 error, right?
Yeah, the
Somewhere
sort of the overnight
something.
sort of reconciliations and things like this.
So, and the ability to do this in an automated fashion as well is really important. People say to me, oh, Gail, how long have you been in hotels? I'm like, well, I was a night auditor back when that actually meant something. And when I started working in hotels, and there's some of you out there that have the same experience, you sat down at night and you took copies of the reports from the registers, and they were little register tapes, and you had to kind of work your way through them until you got to the totals and Z the machine out at night and run credit card transaction totals through a telex. Yes, I'm that old. And copies of the hard copies of the credit card form and so forth. And this was all done manually, right? And all of the matching that goes along with that was a very manual process. And so the fact that we now have an integration tool, an intelligence tool, a platform that can automate this for us enables us to not only get it done faster, easier, quicker, but more accurately.
And have some, adding value rather than just achieving an outcome.
Correct.
And I think, Tim, you've been working clients as well, sort of on non-sort of hospitality as well as hospitality.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, on the hospitality sector as well, which is very interesting, is that obviously we are creating now the standard connectors, as you were saying, so increasing the library, so getting integrations up and running really quickly. We're using the Birch Street, we're using Futurelog, we're using whatever. You can automatically implement it. It's going to be really quick. Which means obviously not that expensive for the customers. But outside of that, because obviously there's a lot of integrations tools around, is for me what is really interesting, and you can see that with customers as well, is the whole dashboarding thing, operational intelligence, but also just the monitoring in a way that it's actually useful for accountants to see. You don't need to call your IT guy what happens. You either alert it, which is also an option obviously, or at least you can see, okay, we got 8 feeds in, we were supposed to get 9 feeds in if you're at a global level. So these kind of things is something which is easily done. But also the dashboards we can create outside of everything that you just explained is you can also make them actionable. So typically you can see an integration didn't work for whatever. I mean, all of us here are Sun Systems people. So why does an integration fail? Because the account code was closed or whatever. You can then easily see, okay, this is just happening. And as you said in the beginning, the fact that you don't have to lose the whole batch, you can just go in and into the dashboard potentially, depending on how you set it up. You can just click a button and it pushes just that one record that failed.
Yep.
So that's really that's where it becomes very practical for people to start using it.
And you guys have found, from a consulting sense, that people with a consulting viewpoint are able to take it up quite quickly if they have
exactly.
the data.
It's,
and I think that's
exactly.
a really key element, the ability for you to take it on as well as consultants potentially as you move along.
Because obviously in reality the real hard work here is the connectors. So so the connectors, you can obviously do them with in hospitality obviously we have really good connections with the other software authors of this world. So obviously we work with them to integrate. They're very keen on getting API integrations and everything, which obviously we can easily do with streams. But outside of that, it's also because what you mentioned with XM Pro, really where it comes from. Obviously, we as LLP, outside of hospitality, we do other sectors as well. We do Hexagon EAM, and not to name them. I mean, I can name them because they were in for before, so I'm sure I can still name them. Where obviously you have, can be anything, can be housing, facility management, work orders, these kind of things. But you can really, you can handle a lot of data. You can flow it in, you can play with it already, you can already send alerts and then trigger things. So this is really where it comes interesting in the facility management space and all these kind of things as well. And it is this one platform. And finally, really the thing which was the first customer we actually did together on streams, wasn't in hospitality, is because for whatever reason, although I'm sure Infor doesn't like to hear this, some customers say they will never go to the cloud for anything. They don't want to have anything in the cloud for whatever reason. Superstition probably more than anything else, but is fine. You can do this and you can just install streams on-premise as well. It's an option. So obviously you don't have the AI stuff and you don't have all that stuff, but at least it's an option. And it does bring you a lot of this value as well, just on-premise, without having need for huge server farms and these kind of things.
Yeah, multiple architectures, multiple
and visibility across the whole thing.
Yes. Thank you, guys. Just a lot of insight into people who are actually doing it. It's really appreciate you coming up and helping. Thank you. I think people working in particular sectors, there is always a unique thing about your sector, your business, your requirements, and being able to flex to deal with those things and understanding them is really important, and having a tool that enables you to do that. So just to finish, very quickly, this is an example of a stream build here. So we obviously have our graphical interface where we can shift things around, we can drop connectors in. So over here we have listeners, so these could be all sorts of different sort of pre-built listeners to do different things that we've already done. We could create a new one for you, and you can see here this covers things like CSV, it's got email in there, it's even got Ethereum. If you want to get into Bitcoin, Influx, there's all sorts there already. And of course, Infor Sun Systems will be one of those, and others that you may well be using. So listeners allow us to take data and understand data. We then got what we call our context providers, which are a different sort of scenario that could involve jumping out to check something somewhere during a stream. So we could have a block for a context provider. We could just grab it here, drop it in, link up the stream, fill in our parameters, and off we go in terms of how that works. So sort of we're trying to keep it graphical and easy to use. Things like transformations. So here we're able to aggregate data. We can remove values in certain ways, apply batch identifiers. There's also, it's a bit like using a pre-built set of building blocks. It's like Lego for your integration. And that makes it quick and easy if you understand what you're doing. And this is a very well documented sort of learning process. You've then got things like recommendations, and that's really important. This is where we could actually send out a notification that something's occurred, allow for interaction from an end user. Maybe it's on email, maybe it's on WhatsApp or Slack, or we can link to all sorts of different ways of doing it on your website, where they could actually say, okay, I acknowledge the fact that something's happened, and link that back and say, okay, great, continue with the flow, or do something different after that. So it's a bit sort of approval type process, as well as being recommendations. Could be something simple, like you may need more bar stock next week because you've been monitoring the fact that there's international rugby tournaments on at the moment. That sort of thing could be a relevant stream if you wanted to go to that extent. So these are easy to use, and then we can also do things like versioning. So versions are really important. The ability to very simply be working on a particular integration, something's changed. Next week I needed to be doing something different, so I could build out a version, I could have that sitting there, testing it separately, and then when I'm ready, instant promotion. So you could say that version becomes this version, and that's now the live version, and data flows in a different way. And you can even regress backwards and things like that as well. So versioning control, the ability to understand that. And then you've got things such as built-in integrity checks and error flows, so it will send information a certain way. And I'm going to press the right buttons in this demonstration if I die doing it. So we have lots of capabilities there. Just try and expand that again. So what I wanted to just show you is this is an Opera stream. So this is, is anyone in the room using Opera for a hospitality sense? Okay, we have one. So you may be aware of the 3-file Opera integration requirement where you have to take the different reports, merge the data together. So this is something we've been building out to deal with that sort of process. So in effect, we're listening for a couple of different reports coming from Opera that need to be merged together, data mapped from it in a certain way to build out values that we could then push into Sun systems as journals. And this is quite often a process that's built in the background. It could be a manual process, it could be sort of quite data intensive. But this is actually quite clever in that what we're doing is we're listening here for the management report, the balance sheet, and DMY report, the daily report, and it then waits for these files to all occur. So we've got scheduling, we've got time lags, we've got polling going on, things like this, and then it will merge them together using our different customized event fields and filters to, in effect, create a journal that will go to Sun systems as an end result. And I haven't quite have the flow enough time to show you the whole flow here, but I thought it was useful just sort of explaining what it does. So I've got this screen to publish, that's turning it on. So if I turn this on, and it's now going to publish. That would be the service in the background, I expect. Is that right, John? Anyway, I'll keep talking while he looks at that because I knew that their service wasn't turned on. But what we're going to do is I've actually got these 3 files. So we've got the management report, daily report, stat report, and this is a file-based integration because Opera in the form that we were using for this one was file-based. We can actually move to APIs as they come into place. And all we need to do is drop those into a particular directory where the system would pick up the files and merge them together. So if I drop them in there for the moment, and if we then go back to our stream, so in effect that's listening here for those when I have this published. So hopefully, do you think I need to shut down, John, and start again? I will talk while that's happening. So all we need to do is to just turn on the service, which is turned off at the moment. But what it will do is it will pick up these files here and then merge them together and produce an output. And what we have is a thing called live view. So you can actually monitor your data as well. You can actually see data flowing through the stream. You can understand what it's doing at each stage. And this could be generating, according to my clock, I have 6 minutes left. Okay, all right, I don't have 6 minutes left. Okay, I will very quickly publish this then. So I'll have words with the timer. No. Okay, so what it would have done is picked up those files, they would have been merged and mapped, and it would have produced in one view in here a journal file, which we would then push into Sun systems in this case. But in taking that data, we could also have applied some dashboards, some alerting, some error codes, and other things there. So I guess to finish, what I'm trying to say here is streams is something that's very, very versatile. It allows you to have a backbone that you can actually use again and again in different ways for different systems. And you can then think beyond that, how can I benefit the business? How can I add value? How can I improve my operational situation and the intelligence I get from it? So it's a great tool, very powerful. And I think if anyone's interested, please do come and have a chat with us afterwards. And I'm sure Gail and Tim will be happy to talk hospitality streams with you as well. And I appreciate your coming along today and helping with us. And I think that's a great partnership, by the way. So thank you very much, guys. I will move you on to Rita, who I've obviously now eaten some of your time again, even though my clock still says 5 minutes. So sorry about that. Thanks.